Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review here for a movie from Rob Zombie. He wrote it and directed it, and frankly, I think it's the next to last one I haven't seen that he's done. The other one being that animated luchador Mexican weird thing. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but I don't really have any interest in seeing it. I don't even think that's a horror film. But anyway, I typically am very wish-washy on Rob Zombie. I'm not a hardcore fan, but I do like and respect what he does. I don't like House of a Thousand Corpses. I love Devil's Rejects. I think Three from Hell's pretty decent for the most part. It's kind of a mess, but it's not really his fault. It's kind of just a situational thing, as you guys know with Sid Haig. And overall, I think the Firefly trilogy, or is it just the... Is that what it's called? Whatever. Anyway, I like those to an extent. I think that the first Halloween is terrible until like the last act of the movie, and I think it's really great there with the whole Michael and Laurie chase down thing. Tyler Mane's the best, probably one of the best Michael Myers ever cast. Then H2 I think is phenomenal. I love H2. I think it's fantastic, close to perfect. I have both versions of the film on DVD and Blu-ray, so that's pretty cool. And then 31 was the last one I saw from him, new to me. I don't remember if that was before this movie. I think it was. Also, I just realized I haven't seen his Munsters remake, which looks terrible. But I'm willing to watch it. I love the Munsters. That movie looks horrible. The trailer looked good to me back in the day, and well, it got trashed in reviews, so maybe at some point I'll suffer through it for you guys to do a review, as well as the other Munsters movies, and maybe I'll even rewatch the show. Probably not this year, maybe next year, though. Anyway, so let's talk about this little film right here called The Lords of Salem. It's about an hour and 40 minutes, and it came out in 2012, which I have passed this thing over and over again on Tubi. I've wanted to see it, but I've also been just not drawn to it. I've been many a time, just not wanting to see it. I heard it was a very satanic, witch-focused movie, and sometimes, I gotta be honest with you, this is gonna sound stupid, but this is the point of the movie for people like me. As a Christian, I love horror. I probably shouldn't, but I do, and movies like this make me extremely uncomfortable, and this film did that too. So if you're a Christian and you love horror, maybe this is the movie for that if you want to squirm a little bit, want to be disgusted a little bit. And even if you're not Christian, dude, this movie is pretty sick. I mean, pretty sick in a way that I think it'll make you uncomfortable. It's a very grimy movie. It's kind of like Rob Zombie's Rosemary's Baby. Very strange constant apostrophe S's, but, you know, that's basically what this movie is. And I enjoyed a big chunk of it. I just think it falls flat by the end. I think it's a little too art housey. It's a little too out there. Very much trying to mimic like grindhouse 70s films. Not as much as House of a Thousand Corpses, but it's in that ballpark. But basically, it's about a young lady played by Sherry Moon Zombie, that is Rob Zombie's wife. Her name is Heidi, and she is a DJ radio host with two other people, Ken Foray from, I think it was Dawn of the Dead, I think is what I remember. I like him a lot. He's the black guy that got beat up in Halloween in the bathroom stall. I love that scene, really funny. He's really good. So he's great here too when he's in the movie. And there's another host too who's also the guy, I think it's, is it Jeff something? Anyway, he played Herman in the new Munsters movie, and, you know, that was one of the things that put the big red flag up in the air for me about that remake. Basically, they're a radio host show, talk show thing at nighttime, but they also play some records, even though they're on the night shift. And they have weird guests and stuff, and, you know, they're just kind of doing their thing. We watch them mainly hang out at nighttime in the studio and then at their own apartments, mainly Heidi at her own apartment, where we begin to see things behind her, around her, that she doesn't really seem to see. Like, she might walk into her dark-ass apartment, turn on a light in the kitchen, and you might see somebody standing in the corner on top of the countertops. She doesn't see it, though. So there's a little bit of jump scare stuff in here. That's cheap. But I gotta be honest with you, there's a really good atmosphere to this movie that I enjoyed tremendously. I think it's beautifully shot for what it's doing. I think Rob Zombie's pretty solid when it comes to cinematography. It's the movies that he makes that I don't like. It's like the big chunk of the Halloween remake that's so slow, so dull, puts me to sleep every time I try to watch it. Really not good for what it is. I would have rather him had done a reboot entirely than what he did here, or in that Halloween remake. But The Lords of Salem is also, like I said, kind of a witch movie. We start out the film with a bunch of witches, and we don't know how far back it could have been, or if it's recent, like out in the woods somewhere. But we know that Meg Foster is in this as the lead witch. There's a bunch of other witches, and I could have sworn one of them was Scout Taylor Compton. It turned out I don't think it was, according to IMDb. But the witches just, like, get naked all the time. Like, every time you see a witch in this movie, she's naked. And that includes Meg Foster, and that is fucking nasty. There's, like, one witch that's kind of hot, and that's about it. But they do their chants and spells and stuff. At the beginning of the movie, they realize, again, that they have failed trying to birth the Antichrist. And somebody had a normal boy baby. And watching them spit in the face of this fake animatronic-looking baby, it's so, again, grimy. It makes me feel nasty watching it. I need a shower after watching this movie. But they begin to target Heidi for some reason. We don't really know why. And frankly, by the end of the film, we really don't find out much of why. But they begin to target her to be the new pod, if you will, to give birth to this Antichrist. But we're not really sure how A will get to B. So that's really the experience of the movie. Frankly, by the end of it, you really don't connect those dots that well either. But I do like the supporting cast. I think everybody from Meg Foster to the two best friends that are working on the radio show host thing with her. I like all that stuff, man. But also, there's another element of the story that comes in where basically Heidi also gets a record delivered to her. I think it's at the station itself, in a big wooden box that has the words "The Lords" written on it. So she assumes it's a band that's kind of trying to be a bunch of edgelords that send this record to her. And she kind of listens to it one night. She puts it on the radio station. It's kind of cool. I kind of like the sound of that thing. Very bassy, very trance-inducing, I want to say. And we kind of see the cutaways to other women and stuff all over, I guess, the city, the area that get this broadcast on the radios. And a lot of them are acting weird while they listen to this song playing. Heidi turns it down so she and the people in the studio don't really hear it, but apparently this record from this band called The Lords begin to mess with people. But we're not really sure where this record came from. You and I, as the audience, can assume it came from these witches somehow, some way. Now, I don't want to tell you too much more. That's really the gist of the film. But frankly, it doesn't really break out of that by the end of it. There's some extremely disturbing imagery in here. There's a lot of stuff that's very, again, in that art house way, it's kind of very overly sexualized with a lot of nudity. There's one scene involving like Catholic priests and stuff. A couple of scenes involving Catholic priests doing some debauchery, which is strange to watch in any horror film I've ever seen. It's like if you watched The Nun and the nun just went buck wild at a strip club. That's how weird this is. I'm not even Catholic. It's just weird to watch stuff like that happen. That's what this movie consists of over and over again. But the atmosphere, like I said, the atmosphere is really strong, man. I enjoyed the majority of the movie, but it really lost me by the end. I think the end is a really lame-o ending. It really doesn't have what I think it needs to have by the end of it to be satisfying. Not that it's trying to be satisfying, but to me, my ultimate belief at the end of the day for any kind of movie, cartoon, show, book, is that it shouldn't just be about experimentation. It should be about actually being satisfying to the audience. And I don't care if that's, again, an episode of Dexter's Laboratory or a movie that's a revenge film like The Punisher. It needs to be satisfactory in some way for the audience. And I suspect that even though Rob Zombie says this movie was made exactly how he wanted to make it, I personally believe that it was a budget restraint, that he ran out of money. That's what I believe. But he typically makes his movies pretty cheap, so I don't know. I think Rob Zombie would have been a hell of a filmmaker back in the 80s if he had been making movies then and not now. So I would have been interested to see what he could have done back in the day, but we got him in modern times. He's a good director. I think he does really well here for the most part. It's one of his most well-shot films. I was surprised it didn't look as cheap as 31 was, even though I don't remember if this is before or after that. This looks way better than 31. But anyway, that's pretty much the general gist of my thoughts. It has practical effects, they're excellent, and the music is pretty freaking good too, if you love looking for that in music. If you like Rob Zombie films, this is worth at least one watch, I would say. I know there's a lot of people out there who are split on whether this is actually good or bad. I'm not really a fan of it. I don't really consider it bad, but I don't really like it that much either. It's got some really good atmosphere, like I said for the third or fourth time, but it doesn't save the movie. It's got some good stuff. It's got some good stuff. The practical effects are really cool. The spitting on the baby scene still will be stuck in my brain every time I think about this movie. But outside of that, that's all I've got. So if I had to rate The Lords of Salem on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give it about a 3 out of 5 stars, I would say. It's a pretty interesting watch for what it's got, but don't watch this with your parents, is what I would say. It's always on Tubi, in case you ever want to watch this. This and 31 seem to stay on Tubi. It's like Tubi owns the rights to them now or something. It's pretty funny. But anyway, let me know what you think about it down in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear everything you have to say about this movie and Rob Zombie's work in general. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.